The sun was setting slowly over the wide African plains, painting the sky with deep red and golden fire. Smoke curled gently from small clay huts scattered across the dusty ground, and the air carried the faint smell of roasted yam mixed with burning wood. Children's laughter echoed in the distance, but in this village, joy always walked hand in hand with whispers. The narrow paths between the huts were crowded with people returning from the river, their baskets heavy, their voices low. Some glanced toward a small hut at the edge of the settlement, and their eyes lingered for just a moment longer than they should have. Inside that hut lived a young African woman named Nia, barely 25 years old. She was gentle and kind-hearted, always quick to help others, yet the villagers never truly welcomed her. They said strange things about her. Some called her cursed, others swore her shadow moved differently from the rest. But Nia's heart was pure. Each evening she sat outside her hut, braiding her thick black hair with patient fingers, staring at the horizon as if it held answers only she could hear. Still, the whispers grew louder. Old women shook their heads when she walked past. Men pulled their children closer, muttering that misfortune followed her footsteps. And though she smiled, deep in her chest she carried a heavy sense that her life would not be long, that something dark was already waiting for her in the shadows of the coming night. Nia's mornings began before the first rooster crowed. She would rise quietly from her mat, tie a faded blue wrapper around her waist, and step out into the cool dawn. While the rest of the village women greeted each other with laughter and chatter, Nia walked alone to the river. Some pretended not to see her. Others whispered as she passed. The sound of her bare feet on the dust was often the only companion she had at the riverbank. She knelt by the water and filled her clay pot with care. Yet even there she could not escape the sting of rejection. Mothers pulled their daughters close, warning them not to sit too near. Men muttered that a woman like her could bring ruin to anyone who dared show kindness. The words sank deep into Nia's chest, heavy as stones. She longed for a simple smile, a gentle word, but all she received were sharp glances and hushed voices. Inside her hut, Nia kept to herself. She cooked, she cleaned, she prayed. Sometimes, at night, she pressed her face into her hands and wept quietly so no one would hear. Her heart carried unspoken grief, the grief of being unloved, of being judged for things she could not understand. Yet in those moments of despair, something strange stirred within her. When the wind blew across the thatched roof, it seemed to whisper her name. When she closed her eyes, she felt a presence soft but powerful comforting her in the silence. The elders called her cursed, but Nia believed, deep inside, that there was more to her life than their cruel words. She could sense it in her bones, as though unseen hands guided her path. Even in her loneliness, a flicker of hope burned quietly, refusing to die. And while the village rejected her, Nia carried her secret with patience. She did not yet know that the very whispers meant to destroy her would one day reveal her destiny. The day began like any other. The sun rose high, and the village buzzed with its usual rhythm of pounding mortar, children's laughter, and goats bleating along the dusty paths. Yet for Nia something felt different. Her body was heavy, her breath uneven. She tried to ignore it as she fetched water and cooked her small meal, but the dizziness came in waves. Stronger with each step she took. By afternoon, whispers had already spread. Some said her sickness was a punishment. Others claimed the spirits had finally come to collect her soul. And when she collapsed at the edge of the market square, gasping for air, no one rushed to her side. The people stood frozen, staring. A few women clutched their wrappers tighter, muttering that her curse had finally caught up with her. Children peeked from behind their mother's skirts, their wide eyes filled with fear. Only one old neighbor, Mama Tola, knelt beside her, pressing a trembling hand to Nia's forehead. "She is burning," she whispered, but the others only shook their heads. "Leave her," one man said harshly. "She was marked from birth. Let the spirits take her." His words cut through the crowd like a knife. Nia's breaths grew shallow, her lips pale. For a brief moment, her eyes opened, searching the crowd, pleading for kindness, but she found none. The weight of loneliness pressed on her chest as the world dimmed before her eyes. Then, with a final trembling sigh, her body fell still. Silence swept the market. Even the goats stopped bleating. Some women covered their mouths in shock, while others murmured, "It is finished." A group of men carried her body back to her hut, their faces tight, not with sorrow but with relief, as if a shadow had finally been lifted from the village. That evening, the sound of drums echoed across the settlement. They were not the joyful rhythms of a wedding but the slow, heavy beats of mourning. Smoke rose into the darkening sky as women wailed, their cries piercing the night air. Yet even in mourning, the whispers did not stop. She was cursed, some said. She brought this upon herself. Others shook their heads in pity, muttering that no one deserved such loneliness in life or in death. Inside her hut, her lifeless body was washed carefully. Mama Tola wept quietly as she bathed Nia's thin frame, her hands gentle, her lips moving in soft prayers. She dressed her in a clean white cloth, wrapping her as tradition demanded. Candles flickered, throwing shadows on the mud walls, while a group of mourners chanted in low tones. The air was heavy with grief, but also with unease. The villagers feared that, even in death, Nia's spirit might bring them misfortune. Children were kept away, and elders advised that no one linger near her body for too long as the drums continued through the night. The village prepared for her burial at dawn. The clay pot she had carried daily to the river sat by her bedside, cracked and empty, as if it too had lost its purpose. Outside, the whispers swirled like restless spirits on the wind. Some mourned, some mocked, but all waited anxiously, sensing that this was not the end of Nia's story. Dawn broke heavy with silence. A pale mist hung over the village as the mourners gathered around the small wooden coffin. The drums beat slow and steady, their deep tones echoing like a heartbeat of sorrow. Women wailed, their voices rising and falling in waves of grief, while men stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the ground. The air was thick with the smell of burning incense and candle wax. Nia's body, wrapped in white cloth, lay motionless inside the coffin. Her face was calm, almost peaceful, though shadows of pain still lingered in her expression. Mama Tola stood close, tears rolling down her cheeks as she whispered prayers, begging the spirits to guide Nia safely to the other side as the chants grew louder. The coffin was lifted slowly and carried toward the shallow grave dug at the edge of the village. The people leaned in, whispering to one another, their voices trembling with both pity and fear. Children clutched their mothers tightly, their eyes wide, sensing something was wrong. The coffin was lowered gently into the ground. The drums quickened, the chants reached their peak. And then suddenly the earth itself seemed to tremble. Gasps broke through the crowd. Nia's body shifted, her chest rose. Then, in one shocking instant, she sat upright. Candles flickered wildly as her lips parted. A deep, echoing voice spilled from her mouth, strange, heavy words that froze every soul in place. The villagers screamed. The dead had spoken. And this was only the beginning.